Hi, it's Shaylee, and this is going to be my reflection video for my personal identity story. And I did a lot of writing, so if I look down, I'm looking at this, but just so obviously I remember the questions that were on there. But I thought this video was a pretty good idea because there was a lot that I learned, not only about myself, but I mean about biases, stereotypes, and everything, and especially considering the fact that as someone who tries to be very open-minded, I kind of realized after reflecting on myself that I'm human. I mean, there are things that I need to work on and biases that I have internally that I didn't even realize that I had until I was writing my reflection questions. So I thought it was pretty nice, and we're gonna go ahead and get started. So the first one is the learning that I thought I received from the hidden bias test. So the two tests that I took were hidden biases with Jews versus Islamic people, and the second one was the transgender one. So I have always not really, I don't want to say not cared, but obviously, like, I think there's freedom of religion. I think there's freedom to be who you are to a certain extent. I think I have internal biases against Islamic people just because of things I've heard, and I kind of basically found that out once I was doing that test because Jewish people, I actually have a Jewish friend in my life. She even has like a Jewish tattoo and everything, and she grew up a Jewish family. I think with that kind of stuff, I think the reason that I have a little more, like, I don't want to say sympathy, but I don't have as much against Jewish people is because of what happened with Hitler and everything that happened. I mean, not too long ago. I think it was World War II that all of that happened. So I was kind of reflecting and trying to see, because it did say in my results that I preferred Jews over Islamic people, and I had a little preference for them a little more. I thought the tests were pretty interesting. I mean, it was a little hard to really base that true statement off of anything because it made me like sort words based on like Jews and bad was here and Islamic and good was here. I mean, altogether, like, that doesn't truly mean something, but when I did do reflection, I kind of did realize, like, ooh, I think I kind of would have a little preference of Jewish people over Islamic. So it's pretty interesting. And then the transgender one that I did kind of showed me that it said I prefer cisgender, which are people who are not trans, over transgender people. And it made me reflect a lot on just like my issues that I've had. I wouldn't say with transgender people, like, be who you want to be. It is your, freedom of life and everything. I think it just kind of made me reflect, and it made me learn why I have issues with Islamic people, transgender people, and it was just really good for me to just kind of reflect and like learn about myself and why I think the way that I think, and just to kind of work on those aspects of myself. So cultural factors that formed me. I talked a lot about this in my reflection, but my parents and my siblings, I mean, ultimately, those are going to be the biggest factors that form me. My parents, my mom and my dad were both in my life and still are, and they obviously are the people that give me my viewpoints, my mannerisms, my thoughts on things. They are the people that raised me my entire life. And also, on top of my parents, I mean, my siblings too. They are the people that raised me, and especially my mom, she made me who I am today. They are the reason why I am who I am today, why I believe certain things, why I have certain aspects of life, and all that kind of stuff. I also grew up with a religious family, and I had on my dad's side, a lot of very nasty religious people who were very judgmental, which caused me to become not religious. So those cultural factors, I think my grandma was Mormon and she was very judgmental, did not like people for who they were. And so I had a lot of issues. And because of that, I am not religious anymore. My dad and my mom were not like that, obviously, but I think a lot of that kind of stuff made me grow into the person I am. And also my education. I had great education, obviously. I was very lucky, but I mean, not even just the academic part of it, but the people that I encountered and bullying and things like that formed me into a strong person and made me become a good educator to this day. I am currently substituting and I'm going to school to become a teacher, but it made me a very strong educator that looks out for students who are receiving bullying. The next one is vulnerability versus professional sharing with students. So obviously I do think it is good to be vulnerable with our students. It is good for us to show them our human side, that we are not just teachers, that we are not just, they're educators. We are human too. We care about them. We have emotions. We get frustrated. We get upset. Now, I think it is important to tell us, or not to tell us, to tell our students stories about our lives, but we need to keep it professional, especially because I want to teach elementary school. And I think it is even harder to be professional when you teach older, because especially with my age, I'm 22 years old. I mean, I could easily relate to high schoolers, especially because they are very similar and very close to my age. But we need to remember, like, we don't ever talk about things like drinking. We don't ever talk about stories like that. We need to specifically talk about things that are just professional. The main goal is we want our students to know they are not alone in making mistakes. We could talk about making mistakes in school, but we want them to understand that they need to get help, not just sit around. And that's where the vulnerability versus being professional comes in. You want to let your students know that you are there for them, that they can make mistakes, but you don't want to come off as their friend, and that is where the professionalism should come in. Now, my change in thinking or my practice, or changes in my practices from the learning. So obviously one of the main things that really shocked me was the transgender thing and the bias towards people. Obviously, like, I kind of already knew I had some bias against transgender things, and it's not at all that I don't think people should be who they truly are. I think I've just seen a lot of things and I've had bias towards it, because I think in a lot of ways, like, transgender people can be very overbearing and they can make things about them a lot. But when I was doing these tests, it kind of put it into my mind, like, how much bias I have towards them. Now, it made me reflect on things, but it did make me realize that the good thing is I don't ever talk out loud to people. I don't ever say things to people. I keep it internally because it is my thoughts. It is not their problem what I think. But I think the good thing is that I want to change this thinking. I want to change how I view things. I would like to change my bias against Islamic people and things like that. And it made me really reflect on, favoring people, because I don't know people at the end of the day, no matter what they look like, no matter who they are as a person. And I thought this test was really good because I learned a lot about myself that I didn't even realize. I didn't even really truly realize I had favoritism of Jewish people over Islamic until I took this test. So I thought this test was really good, and I am really excited to kind of change myself and grow up a little more. So thank you.